Okay, so I got this Ask HershNoeie, and it's a pretty good one. And someone asked me, since I have been to Haiti, why is the country still very poor? They said that from their understanding, it's still the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Why do you think that is, given that they've received a lot of economic aid? Let me first say, this is a good question because as you guys know, I've tried to actually invest in Haiti, work in Haiti, do a lot of different things, and it's pretty frustrating. But I first want to say it's not the Haitian people. Also, make sure you join our Discord, which is going to be down in the description box below. It's not the Haitian people because the Haitian people are some of the hardest working people that I know, and I'm not just saying that. And there's a lot of them that really and truly want to see the best for the country and see it move forward. So it's not the Haitian population. It's not the country of Haiti. It's not any of that. And I've had someone try to lecture me and say, well, it's due to Haiti's past. And, the Haitian Revolution happened. And as a result, places like France made them pay for their slaves, which is true. And there's been a lot of international intervention from places like Canada, the United States. All of those are facts, not doubting that whatsoever. And that has had a major role in their economy. Absolutely. Their economy not growing. Absolutely. But there is also a major failing due to the local politicians, local, regional, and national. 100%. And I say that because I have actually had to work directly with them, and I can tell you that. I'm not trying to minimize the impact that foreign companies and foreign governments have done, because that is definitely there. But one of the frustrations that I think foreign investment has is the lack of will from the politicians. And that has nothing to do with other countries. It has to do directly to nor the Haitian people. It's not, again, it's not the Haitian people. It's the government. And the reason why it is still in the position that it is due to economic aid is, one, after the earthquake, Haiti didn't receive everything, but it did receive a lot of money. Now, when you ask the politicians and the president, they will make up excuses as to what happened. And even though they didn't get every single thing that they were promised, they were given quite a bit, and that quite a bit could have done tremendous amounts of improvement, but that didn't really happen. Um, when you look at other countries in the Caribbean, there's a reason why they have succeeded where Haiti has failed. And I think when you are some of the locals there, some of the people in Haiti have been to other countries, even in the Caribbean, not necessarily the United States or Canada, where it's completely different, but even nearby countries, from Dominican Republic to Jamaica to the Bahamas to places like Dominica, and they see the drastic difference. And part of it is due to, again, it's not the fact that Haiti doesn't have entrepreneurs, because they do. They do have some big companies, but there have been big companies that have left Haiti. And it has to do with the politics. The political instability is one of them. So because you have the political instability, you're not going to have Nike going there or Boeing or any big company ever. Why take that risk? If you can't get government, local government especially, national and regional governments to work with small investors, big investors aren't going to even take a chance. They're just not going to do that. And that has nothing to do with other nations. That has to do with Haiti itself, the politicians itself. And when you see how, when you see some of the political unrest, it's due to citizens getting upset with the fact that money just seems to disappear. Money from, they have an agreement with Venezuela in terms of, oil, gas, basically, and goods, right? So Haiti ships them farm products in exchange for a lot of their fuel, and they get it at a discounted rate. And sometimes there's money and stuff like that. Well, it still doesn't change the fact that the fuel costs are super expensive. And people are like, but why? I don't understand. Why are the fuel costs so excessively high? It's not only the fuel costs, but to bring something into Haiti, their port taxes, like to bring cargo into Haiti, is super, super expensive. It's much cheaper in the Dominican Republic. Haiti, it's much more expensive. Much more expensive. So you couple those things together. The lack of roads. It has received a lot of money, but the lack of roads. When you look at what it could be, there's a lot of potential. You have people who go to Lagunov Island, which I've been to, and you have other people coming there, and they say there's so much potential here. There's so much that you can do to build this economy. Like the island of Lagunov, which is about the size of Chicago, the city of Chicago, not the suburbs, the city of Chicago, is an island that has about 120,000 people. And instead of that island becoming the next Jeju, which you could turn it into a place for not only for the people to live there, but it could be a touristy place, similar to how Jeju Island is to South Korea. It could be a place where a lot of local Haitians in Port-au-Prince and different parts of Haiti could come down for weddings or vacations or what have you. It has a lot of untouched beaches. It has a lot of beautiful valleys and hills and cliffs and things like that. It could be, there's sandbars and stuff like that. It's really beautiful. But you don't have any investment. The government doesn't really invest in the island. And so out of that whole entire island, which is 30 miles long, about 10 miles wide, there's only about maybe 2 miles of road that's paved. You don't have any sort of public transportation. You don't really have a water system. I mean, there's been nonprofits who have dug wells, but you don't even have that. There's really not a good electrical grid. Now, there's not a good electrical grid in Haiti itself, but on the island, it is very sparse. It's not really consistent, and the operator is questionable. Because again, people pay a lot of money to it, but they don't really get a lot of benefit out of it. It's not really regulated. So if somebody's trying to invest, why would they want to invest and there's so much uncertainty and there's no one to question? I remember there was a person I was working with there who wanted to buy lumber. And so because there's not a lot of good roads, you have to move things around on motorbike. Now imagine this, a big old piece of plywood, you have to put it on the back of a motorbike. Because getting to that particular store, which was a hardware store, unless you have a 4x4, it's not going to work. You can't bring a Prius because it ain't going to work. So we picked out the lumber. They went back and told some folks on a motorbike that they knew, hey, let's go and get that lumber. They go back, and the lumber that they paid for, which was much more pricier, because you have different grades of lumber, they substituted out that more expensive piece of wood and gave the cheapest piece of plywood and said it's ready for you to pick up. And the person who was buying this lumber, she's from California. She knew, because she looked at the wood, she looked really good. And I did too. And I could see that it was completely different. It was not as thick, had a whole lot of different defects in it. And it wasn't the piece of wood that they threw down originally. They had switched it out. And they thought it was funny. The workers thought it was funny. The owner was just kind of like, whatever. And I said, this is the reason why people don't invest in your country. Because if you do stupid stuff like this, you're only hurting yourself. You know what I mean? You're not benefiting you, because what she's going to do is not buy from you again, which hurts you and your people, but your employees, but more than likely tell other people, which she told me I wouldn't buy stuff from there because it's like, you can't trust them. That type of thing is rampant. And so it hurts Haiti because no one can, Haiti will, as politicians, will accept the help from other nations. So there's two things keeping Haiti afloat. Other nations, so that keeps the political part of Haiti going. financially. And then nonprofits, which keep the population of people going. Because if you didn't have nonprofits who stepped in there, and some of them aren't really reputable themselves, then the entire economy would collapse completely. So you have if nonprofits, and there's some that do, they provide hospitals. Not all, but there are nonprofits who build hospitals. So if you're going to build a hospital, I ain't got to worry about it. This is the government. There are nonprofits who build schools so that kids can be educated. Well, if you're going to build schools, then I ain't got to really worry about that too much either. I'm not going to put too much money towards it. There are some nonprofits who do provide jobs. Well, then I ain't going to really, try to bring in investment because I don't really need to. You're going to help out a little bit. So what happens is that you don't have a lot of nonprofits building roads. So when you go to places like Loganov Island, there's hardly any roads built because nonprofits typically don't invest in that. They're trying to save people's lives. And so you don't have a lot of roads paved. Even on the Haitian mainland, there's roads that are paved, but they're still in very bad repair. I'm not bashing Haiti whatsoever. It's a country I really and truly love. I'm just speaking facts. It's the politics that have actually held the country back drastically. Foreign countries like the United States have not helped. It made it worse by far. Don't get me wrong. But I put it to you this way. It took me 3 years. For 3 years, I've tried to invest into Haiti and actually have talked directly to local mayors. And for 3 years, I haven't gotten anywhere. I haven't gotten anywhere for 3 years. Now, let's put that into perspective. In 3 years, you can literally imagine a highway, how much you can build in 3 years in the United States. In 3 years, here in Tacoma, for example, they will, in 3 years, complete a BRT bus line that's about 14 miles long. They'll do that in less than 3 years. They've built a light rail system that goes for about 3 miles. It'll take them 3 years, maybe 4 to complete. In 3 years, there are places that have built apartment buildings and completed them. But in 3 years, I have not been able to even get an answer. You'll talk a little bit to someone that's the mayor of a place, and then the talking stops. And I was warned of this. I was told by a lot of different investors before. And I was told by other folks that went there to help. One was a fire chief, and he went there to actually help, propel the fire department throughout the country. And a few months later, most of those fire stations were disbanded and the equipment not there. I tried to get grants for Loganov Island and got a lot of pushback. I got tremendous pushback. And most of the questions were not about the project that I was doing. It wasn't even about me. It was about, how do you know local officials won't try to take the money and use it for themselves? How do you know that local officials aren't going to? It was more or less about, what will the government do? Are they going to take the money? Are they going to control the process? Are they, that was it. Even when it comes to bringing things in, like, let's say that I wanted to bring in, equipment. A shipping company gave me a whole long list of questions. The first thing was, are you going to ship it into Haiti or Dominican Republic? And I said, well, give me information on both. Well, the questions for Dominican Republic were just about this big, 2 or 3 questions. What port it's going to be at, when do you want it, and how is it going to be picked up? Those were the 3 questions. When I said, okay, what about Port-au-Prince or in Port Lafayette? There was those questions were asked, but there were a tremendous amount more questions overall. How is it going to be secured? What about the infrastructure that's there? The port we know is fine, but what about getting it in and out? Like, there was a tremendous amount. And so I bring these up because these are things that the government, the national government, can do to improve things. But if there's skepticism there, when I've talked to everybody, then it kind of tells you why there is a slow process in developing the island. It doesn't help that there are natural disasters that destroy the country. I'm not minimalizing other things that have actually helped create a bad situation, but there are other countries like Dominica, for example, which is about the size of Loganov Island, and it's a country by itself. It's got 70,000 people on it, small little island, but yet the people there make 10 times as much per year as the people in Haiti. 10 times. Their salary is 10 times as much. And it's an island that's only about 290 square miles. Okay? To give you perspective, let's look at the city of Miami, how big Miami is. Because people may have been to Miami and they kind of can get a gauge as to the size of the city. Now, we're not talking the suburbs of Miami. We're not talking about any of that. But Miami by itself, if you just look at the land, is about 36 square miles. Okay? Let's look at Chicago, because Chicago is a pretty sprawled out city, right? We're not talking about the suburbs of Chicago. We're just talking about the city of Chicago itself to give you an idea. Okay? The city of Chicago is at 234 square miles. So when we're talking about this little island of Dominica, it's about the size of Chicago. And the island of La Gonave in Haiti is about the size of Chicago. Yet, Haiti makes about $19 billion, $20 billion a year in terms of GDP. This little tiny island of Dominica only makes about $600 and something million a year GDP, yet its people make 10 times as much as what they do in Haiti. Yes, there's a big population difference. Haiti has over 11 million people, and Dominica has only about 70,000 people, about the size of Bowling Green, Kentucky. But Dominica has all their roads paved. They have power lines running throughout the entire country. They have cruises that come in and out of that country. Even though Haiti does have a cruise deal up in the northern part of Haiti, it's isolated from the rest of the island. Because even though it's right there on, people say it's an island, but it's not. It is basically a part of Haiti that the cruise company was able to fence off. And only people who are on the cruise ship have access to this resort. Whereas in Dominica, it is just like every other place. The cruise ship pulls up, people can go throughout the whole entire country if they wanted to. Right? And Dominica gets half the amount of tourists as what Haiti does. And Dominica actually asks for investors. Dominica is one of those countries where if you wanted to invest and you had at least $100,000, you could become a citizen there. So as a result, Dominica, even though it only has 70,000 people, their capital city has a big old huge multi-purpose stadium. It has all types of housing developments all over the place. It's a drastically different place. Drastically different. And I bring that up because there's so much that can be done to Haiti if the politicians got out of the way. It's not the people. It's the politicians that make it difficult. And when you don't have local mayors that won't return phone calls or answer you or work with you, it makes it even more difficult. And it's not just them. Regional leadership, they don't help either. And there could be a reason for that. And I've said, and people have said, they are intentionally wanting the country to be poor. Because if you're poor, this is the analogy, and you can agree or disagree, someone gave me. They said, think of it this way. They said, if you look at someone who's homeless, not the people who are working homeless, there are people who have jobs and they're still homeless because the cost of living is so much, they are still technically homeless. So it's not like they're not trying. They're trying. They're just in bad situation. There's some people whose medical bills have made them, homeless. They lost their home, but yet they still have a job, but things came up, right? So there's a large part of the population who are homeless who really are working every single day. And things happen. He's not talking about them. He's not talking about the ones who have substance abuse issues. He's talking about the ones there is a part of folks who are homeless who come from middle income home. They don't have any substance abuse issues. None of that. There was a lady who chimed in on Facebook one day and saying that her sister purposely wants to be homeless because she doesn't want to have a job. She just literally says, I don't want a job. If I'm homeless, but I don't want a job. Doesn't have any issues, no mental issues, no substance abuse issues, would rather be homeless because she doesn't have any responsibilities. And this guy was saying that's the group I'm talking about, where a person is homeless, but they'd rather have a cup asking for money, or they'd rather steal a package off of your doorstep and then sell it to a pawn shop and live off of that because they have no responsibilities. They don't have to get up at a certain time. They don't have to do anything. They basically can just either ask for help or take something and make money. And he said if Haiti, if the politicians did what Dominica is doing and have investors come in and actively invest and feel safe and comfortable investing, then they're responsible for it. They have to be responsible for the security issue in Haiti. They have to be responsible for people having a good education, which they don't provide. They have to be responsible for reliable power and water and various different things, housing, healthcare. They have to be responsible for that because you're not going to get an investment if people are sick. They can't make it there because there's no good roads or transportation to it. There's political turmoil because you don't know who's in power. The person in power takes away all of the government, all of the congressional leaders. They disband parliament, for example. It's just like if the president basically fired all of Congress. And you have all this upheaval, but yet you can appeal to the international community and tell governments around the world, look, we're in dire straits. We don't have investment. So then you have other nations around the world float you, so politically you can stay in power. And then the population of people can stay in power because of the donations that people give through nonprofits. It's much easier. So if you invest and you put in a housing development or a stadium, you're wanting to make sure that the country is stable. You want to make sure that the local government is responsive. But similar to the person who is homeless versus the person who is having a job every day and is accountable and that type of thing, you don't have to really answer to that. You can just decide what you want to deal with, what you don't want to deal with. And the people who suffer is the entire population of Haiti. You can have as many people who are expats who live all around the world try to help keep that country going, and they do. Because a lot of them bring money into Haiti. That's kind of the foreign investment. But as far as getting big companies to come in there and actually invest throughout the entire country, it's just not going to happen. You could talk about the Caracol industrial plant, which Bill Clinton helped get started and some other folks. But that's just one example, and it's kind of like a flea of an example because it doesn't help the rest of the country. It helps northern Haiti, but the rest of the country doesn't really feel that benefit. So the way to build an economy is what you see in places like Dominica and other parts of the world where you have small investments, small investors who come in, they test the waters. They may put in a bed and breakfast. They may put in a small private school. They may put in a small restaurant, or they may put in whatever. And they start employing local people. And then what happens is that other people are like, well, heck, that restaurant's there, but they don't have a good, drink place nearby. There's not a lot of beverages. So someone opens up a place that offers beverages. Someone else says, you know what, it's hot here. There's no ice cream place. I'm going to open up an ice cream store. So someone else opens up an ice cream store. And what you have is just a layering effect of small investors. Some of them are local people from the country. Some of them are from other places who come in and they invest. And all that investment creates taxes which go into the local government. The local government then takes that tax money and they put it into their educational system. Again, look at Dominica. Their educational system is great. Well, I don't know if it's great, but they invest from kindergarten all the way to graduation. They have schools all over the place. Whereas in Haiti, that's not the case. But countries invest into their road situation so that getting goods to and from is easy. Tourists are able to go to and from pretty easily. Businesses then start to grow and grow and grow because more people are coming there and they want to be a part of it. So let me decline Noelle and then I'll call her back. So then big companies are like, or medium companies will say, the micro companies came in and then small businesses came in. Let me be a part of this. So now you have companies that come in that bring in services. You may have a hotel that gets built. You may have, an accounting office that gets built, a call center. Because now they're saying, hey, we want to be around the action too. They're still pumping more money into the economy. Then you have people who want to build housing nearby to feed off of all of that traffic. So then, like you have in Dominica, you have investors who build housing development. The government doesn't have to. The government basically says, I'm going to take the tax money that you have and keep building on this economy. I'm going to keep building on the ports. I'm going to keep building on the roads. I'm going to keep expanding the infrastructure, situation. They even have, because Dominica has a lot of thermal energy. They even have a huge giant boiling lake. They get a lot of their power from thermal. In this small country, they get a lot of their power from thermal energy. So they don't have to pay expensive money for imported oil. You know what I'm saying? So now they're able to power the whole entire country. But they keep doing that. And then other big companies are like, well, what's your electrical capacity? Oh, wow. What's your road network like? Oh, wow. You have public transportation? Dang. Your educational system probably is not good. Let me check it. Oh, it's not so bad. Then big companies are like, I'm gonna invest. Look at all these other companies that are there. They've taken a chance. They've been there for a few years. That's how you do it. You don't get it by basically shutting people out or not returning communication and expecting big investment to come. You're never going to have that. So when someone asked me the question about Haiti, it has a lot of potential. But politicians have to get out of the way in order for that to happen. You have a large young population there in Haiti. You have a large population that can do a lot of things from manufacturing to everything. And some of those things do exist there. But they're small in comparison to the population. Once that country, the leadership, starts to embrace businesses, not only businesses that are already there, but also embrace foreign investments more, small businesses, not the big cash cow, because they're thinking that they're going to get a big giant manufacturer and it's not going to happen. But once they start doing that and they have political stability and they invest in their people more, they have less open sewers, and they actually start putting investment from the tax money they get. They started investing more and spread it throughout the country and not just centralize it in Port-au-Prince. If they start doing that more like other places do, you're going to see the economy get better. But as long as they continue to do what they have done for generations, Haiti will never lift itself out of its current situation. It just won't. And then a natural disaster comes along and it kills whatever momentum that gets started. And then you have political unrest that creates more issue. Then you have foreign nations that create more issue. So it's really incumbent on local leadership, regional leadership, and national leadership stepping up and doing something. And even there are some people in the community who drag their feet and don't do anything. But the vast majority of the population of Haiti wants to see the country better, and they want to see it come out of its situation. But anyhow, Again, not attacking Haiti itself, the country. I think it's amazing. Not attacking the people of Haiti. I think they're amazing. It's the leadership of Haiti that's also a big problem. But anyhow, I can go on and on. Tell me what you think. Make sure you join our Discord. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, I will see you. Take care.